Welcome, Vols and Lady Vols, to Power T Talk. From the Cathedral of Neyland Stadium to the fanatical landscape of college sports, we're breaking down the plays, the players, and the pride of the Southland. I'm Daniel, your host, here with my comrade and co-host, Zach. Grab your orange and white. Let's run through the tea. It's time to give our all for Tennessee. This is Power T Talk. When I thought about the schedule before the season, when we were thinking about our team previews and we were laying out the schedule, when we were thinking about the pattern we wanted to hit and when we wanted to hit certain stuff, this was the podcast I was the most excited about, where we would know enough to feel like we had a feel. But I think the game that I consider the biggest rivalry is just right before us. And this is the one that felt like that middle point that brought a lot of it together.
It's simply the third Saturday in October. And it goes up a level, especially since Josh Heupel single-handedly saved this rivalry. I think a lot of the youngins out there, we're in our 30s, but there might be some youngins that listen to this podcast, do not realize this is the best rivalry in the SEC. And I don't count Oklahoma, Texas as a SEC rivalry. It's the best rivalry in the SEC. It was the best rivalry in the South for decades. A really weird rivalry because there are memorable games, but it's streak heavy, very, very heavy towards streaks the entire series. But when these two teams are as good as they've been the last couple of years, when these two teams are as talented as they have been the last couple of years, and it feels like that the matchup is even, at least from a talent and coaches perspective, post Saban and post Tennessee abyss, it's re-grabbing that specialness that it's had for decades and decades.
Yeah, it's sitting at that point that we hoped it would get to before the season. Like, it's easy to project, oh, that game's going to be huge. Well, here we are, and it's huge. And so I have some other thoughts on kind of what that rivalry means and why we love it so much, why it's kind of so intense when it's going right. And like you said, we kind of righted the count a little bit over the past few bouts, especially in Neyland. Before we jump into that, because I think if we start on that, we're not stopping. If we start on that, we're not stopping. I want to talk about Arkansas, and I want to talk about it from the perspective of, like, well, what are our grades? We'll get into them in a second. But then, like, what were the bright spots? And I don't mean that to just, like, paint sunshine all over what ended up being a close game, but more to look at it from the perspective of, like, there were moments in that game, one, that could have gotten worse, but one, that it could have gotten stretched out to the point that we thought it could. And I know my prediction was a much wider margin, but there was actually a point in the game where I was like, okay, we've settled a bit and we're actually heading towards that margin, and then things squeezed back together. And so I want to jump into our grades and then pause a little bit to think about what looked good and why we think it looked good. Like, when we had some success, let's try to pull on some of those threads a little bit. For this one, and partially because it's going to be a more enjoyable conversation to start the podcast off, let's start with the offense. And I know we do that a lot, but there's a reason we do it a lot this year, and we'll get into it.
Yes.
My overall rating was an 86. And this is twofold. This was one of those games where I was, like, box score watching more so than play-by-play watching. And I did catch parts of it, but it's funny, the little stretches that I caught were like the Brazel barely miss on the touchdown, Star Thomas getting, run up against the back of the center a couple of times when we were shifting offensive linemen in and out. When you pause and look at the box score afterwards, multiple parts look great. And it obviously we got the job done, but multiple part looks great. The run game hit that 200 plus and then some mark that you noted on the last podcast. But the parts that I watched were just like, we're kind of barely missing on a couple things. And I say this all an 86th grade, a victory, etc., with the caveat that this is probably one of the best offenses in the country right now. And there's still
Yeah.
little parts of it that don't feel like they're working perfectly.
I think that's fair. I just wonder if the uncertainty of what Arkansas would do played a small role into this. And I'm willing to give Heupel that pass because Arkansas, based off what I read with their forums and their journalists and everything, they did switch things up. So I'm willing to give a little bit of a pass on that. I gave an 88. It was not an A. The reason I did give an A is because Arkansas gave us the ball 4 times, 3 on fumbles and 1 turnover on down. And we went 3 and out on 3 of those possessions, which immediately just pisses me off just rethinking about it. Plus, we went 2 of 9 on 3rd down. So those 2 things, I'm not giving you an A, especially against this defense. You know, if you put up 30, if you do this against Alabama and you put up 34, I'm willing to give an A. Not against Arkansas, even with the caveat that they kind of went in blind here. Joey was dialed in. I can't remember any truly bad misses. I know the one of Brazel he had. That is not what I would consider a bad miss. A bad miss is by a Joe Milton miss. That was not a Joe Milton miss. Just didn't quite connect it. I thought they did a great job adjusting to what Arkansas was doing with Brazel, really focused on bracketing him, playing more towards his side, and they decided just go with Staley and Kitts over the middle. Great job. That's a great adjustment. Bishop's best game as a Vol by a mile. He is getting better. It's funny because you still are like, were there some yards left? But then you look and you like average 10 yards per carry. So I really can't complain. I thought the offensive line opened up holes until the 4th quarter. I thought it was a conservative overall game plan, but it worked, which again, I understand why. I did not understand rotating the offensive line. That is something that did not make sense. I kind of get Sanders. I understand it because the goal is to let him be the starter. I do not understand, and I'm not trying to take a shot at him, why William Satterwhite's playing in this game, especially when it was this close. Didn't make sense to me. Unless Pendleton's got a really bad injury we don't know about, and he has to be on the injury report, and he's not. So I can't imagine that Heupel would fool around with something like that. And Heupel said it was designed. So I'm just going off what he said. It's never happened before. I cannot remember Heupel doing that before. So that was really weird. Love the play design on offense. I kind of wish they threw the ball more, honestly. But Arkansas had the ball. Arkansas had the ball a lot. So I think that might have been part of it. Arkansas only had 2 tackles for loss. They had 0 sacks, no turnovers. Great job, offensive line. A couple of nice designs in the run game, especially for Joey. That might have been showing Alabama a little something on a couple of those keepers. I'm curious if what that shows Saturday night. I thought overall the offensive line was good. Perry did not seem like he was on his best in the run game. I'm hoping maybe Sanders plays a little bit more. It's a really good side. Tennessee had 40 runs with a 62% success rate. That's not something they've done this year, even against a bad defense. And overall, that's a 54% success rate. That's 95th percentile, 7.5 yards per attempt, or yards per play, 86th percentile, 86th percentile EPA per play. You hit a couple more explosives. Brazel was basically a 0 this game, and you get a couple more 3rd down conversions. It would have been 40 plus easy.
Yeah, I guess real quick, do you have concerns about Brazel at all coming off of that? Like, is it one of those where it's just we just
they double teamed him the whole game. Yeah, they double teamed the whole game. They played cover 3 variations of cover 4 the entire game, which is why Staley and Kitzelman were eating the middle of the field, and why Joey on a couple of those keepers. If you saw those keepers, they were read line options, which is basically a read option, except you're going between the tackles instead of outside the tackles. So they were dropping 3-4 back all game. I'm not over concerned at all. He's healthy. I wouldn't.
Yeah, I was hoping that you were kind of on the same page as me there, because it's just one of those games to me. And other people filled in the gaps admirably. Staley, he's had a few games this year where he's just found space and found space and found space. I think it's weird. The scoreboard doesn't look like it did when Notre Dame and Arkansas played. And Notre Dame obviously went bananas that game. Arkansas is a bad defense, but that was also the absolute nadir of what that defense is going to be. That's the type of game that gets you fired as a coach, and it did. And so we weren't going to see the absolute worst defensive performance of them on the year. That already happened. And so, the frustrating thing is that there actually was a point where I thought it might get to like 44 to whatever, or 51 to whatever. But
it could have.
It didn't happen.
It could have if we didn't sit on the ball, after going up 34-17, and it's just 3 straight runs. And yeah, they could have easily put up 40. We'll probably get to that here in a few minutes or during the Alabama preview. But I mean, they easily could have put up 40 with just a little more aggressive gameplay.
Yeah, and so it was, for me, I think if we had just, again, if we were to hit 40, 48, I think my grade goes up. I also think it's so funny, and I admittedly, I go back and forth a little bit on, like, we wanted to see the run game do this. But I was also like, God, when Joey looks that good, let the guy cook. Like, let him cook a little bit.
I mean, definitely one of those things. There was a specific game plan that they adjusted to, where it's like, okay, they're giving the middle of the field, so let's just keep going middle of the field, and that's fine. Like, Kitzelman had probably his best yardage game as a ball receiving. Staley was open all day long. So I don't have a problem with that part of it. It's just more they started not doing tempo by like the third quarter, late in the third, and then in the fourth, and then the course after they run a beautiful pop pass design play. Heupel's like, wow, why would I do that again? I should just go 12 personnel and hand it to Star Thomas behind Sam Pendleton 3 times, or William Satterwhite. They didn't even have their best offensive lineman in the game there. So it just, that frustrated me. Not as much as the defense did the last 2 drives, which we'll get to, but that part of it's like you easily, and it's not style points, like, but you do have a committee you have to consider. Like, if we are trying to make the playoffs, and you do have to consider a committee, and it'd be nice to it be 44-24, but it is what it is. They won.
There's only, like, I can't think of a bigger gap in my, like, personal sports perceptions when I overall I'm a huge fan of the person, in this case, the coach, Heupel. I can't think of a bigger gap, and I think it's even more true for you, of like, I couldn't love them more as a play caller, and I couldn't be more annoyed with them sometimes as their approach to the game.
Especially because of how, if we ran a list like 2021 Paul Chryst offense, I'd be more understanding, but we don't. I always hear him talk about spring, summer. Got to learn to attack. We want to attack the weaknesses. We're going to play fast and fun. And then in game management, it's the exact opposite.
We've said it a couple times, and basically in a couple different ways. I think I said it in the preseason, like, I want to tie a blindfold around him and not let him see the scoreboard, and just whisper in his ear, like, your only job is to score as many points as possible. Because I think when he operates that way, things are, I mean, we, like I said, we have one of the best offenses in the country. And then sometimes, not the play calling, but the approach just puts a governor plate on it. Like, we just don't let the car go over 60 miles an hour because it's a company car sometimes. And it drives me crazy.
You know what would help? Having a defense that could get a stop.
On to the defense. My grade is a 72, and I'm telling you right now, if I had watched every single play of this game, there's no way it'd be that high. There's no way it'd be that high because, and this is my own self-scouting here, I got to see the Jordan Ross play. I got to see the other turnover. I got to see more of the highlights from a Tennessee perspective. Now, when I wasn't seeing that, when I was seeing the overall game highlights, I saw the number 2 a lot again. It's becoming my least favorite number, and there's reasons why. And so I love the forced turnovers, and that was a big part of my grade overall for the defense, and before the first bye was sitting at the point where it was. But this was one of those games where some of them seemed a little like that Jordan Ross turnover is a brilliant play, but just as easily could have been fallen on by them. And that's the case with a lot of this like fumble luck that we're building. I'm getting to the point where I can't talk myself into that much anymore. We talked about it a lot last episode, where you are very disciplined in how you evaluate a team where you say, like, listen, give me the consistent stuff, the luck stuff, I can't buy in. And I was like, well, we've got it. We've got the pop plays, but it's veering more towards like, golly, as soon as those disappear, we are wide open.
If you had asked me what my grade was at the 13-minute mark of the fourth quarter, I would have gone like solid B. They'd only given up 330 yards. You take away Petrino first script, which you just like knew that was probably going to be a touchdown for multiple reasons. They're coming off a bye. It's a script. Petrino has always been a first drive script genius, like always has been. So you're like, okay, they gave up 10 points after the drive. They forced 3 turnovers. Like they got that fourth down stop. They've made a lot of havoc plays. They really slowed down their passing offense. I mean, Taylor Green, I think, was at like 125 yards passing at that point. I've been like, cool, B. Like, this is one of the best offenses. Like, nice job. And then Tim Banks is like, what if I played cover 4 for 15 consecutive plays? What if I played some
rushing attack that we can't stop?
Against a bad rushing attack, and then, like, what if I played cover 3? Yet I'm going to have my linebackers, like, turn their back against maybe the most mobile quarterback in the SEC.
So the first drive you mentioned, and I did see the first drive, and as soon as they got moving, I was like, oh, they're going to score. And my wife was like, oh, you know, it's a long way to go. I was like, no.
It was
like, and this is not her not knowing football. This was her trying to get me into an optimistic mood. He essentially was like, give him a chance. And I was like, I'm going to, but Taylor Green is going to score.
As soon as they gave up that fourth down that they shouldn't have to go for because it was a first down catch, you just knew, like, okay, they're going to get 7 here. It's fine.
Their first drive went Tuberville touchback, which is just put it in the bank.
He's doing awesome.
Yeah. And then 3 yards, 7 yards, 5 yards, 3 yards, 8 yards, 3 yards, 38 yards, 3 yards, 11 yards. It was just like, and there was this whole hoopla last week about an Arkansas player saying, like, they're impressive, but there are holes on their defense. And, you know, there were some Tennessee fans that were in their feels about that from a very, like...
I know what the catch-22 on that comment was.
Well... was it catching 22?
Yes, there was a red dot.
Yes, it was. I mean, anybody who was like, this guy, he's just giving us bulletin board material. It's like, unfortunately, this is the bulletin board material that is so true that it doesn't matter.
I guess I got to do my spiel here on my grade. So I gave it a 70. They did not get an F. Technically, that is a C minus, because Arkansas is an elite offense. And because after the first drive, until the last 2, they actually did play really well. Like they have
top 10 offense in the country, just for the caveat.
Yes. It's a really good offense. Like it's a great play caller. So like, you know, whatever you want to say about Petrino, we know he can scheme. The defense was bad for 3 total quarters overall when you look at the yardage. The third quarter, they were great. What saved them? 5 sacks, 4 additional TFLs, some 9 total, 3 fumble recoveries, which again, that's luck heavy. And 2 of those easily could have been Taylor Green spots where the ball is and one of their tight ends is there, but so be it. The pass defense was good when you actually dive into the numbers before the final 2 drives. Green was sacked for minus 35 yards. He had 125 yards in the final 2 drives. So before that, he had about 130 through 3+ quarters. He finished with 256. So you take that, 50 minutes, 131 yards passing. You consider the sacks in there. Like that's actually pretty solid. Like when you think about it, against a good quarterback, he's going to get drafted against in some wide receivers that can make plays. Oh, run defense. My God, was it bad? It was atrocious. They ran, and here's what bailed him out. It says 240. It was 275 because they got 5 sacks on 35. So they ran, essentially, you take out the sacks, 40 times for 275 yards. That is terrible. That is awful. That might be the worst of the Heupel era. Like South Carolina they just threw it on us. They did not run. That's probably the worst.
7 yards a pop.
Era. Yes, exactly. The safeties and T-Lander, 22 especially, are killing this team. They cannot contain anything. They do not get the space. They fall for every little misdirection. T-Lander at least tackles. 2 and 15 don't. that first drive where Washington breaks loose, Turntine gave him an additional 20 yards, just doing like, how you in PE, when you did like the switching of your legs to stretch out a little bit when you were in elementary school, literally did that for 20 yards. I'm like, what are you doing, man? Why is 295-pound Tyree West having to go save this touchdown?
Thank goodness he did.
Unbelievable. Yes. Oh, they gave one out anyway, but it was,
True. Fair.
at least it's some pro tape for West, which was my favorite player, so we'll take it. T-Lander, I mentioned it, has a massive Call of Duty red dot on him. Petrino might as well have put him in a blender with what they were doing to him in the run game. They had he had no chance. He had no clue where he was going at any time. And I hate to call out one player, especially when Tim Banks is one of the top 10 defensive coordinators paid in the country, but good Lord, it's bad.
Here's the reason for me that it pops so much is I think you're right about the run game. I don't think I know. And this was actually one of those games where you had noted that part of the reason we were surviving was we weren't giving up explosives. Our tackling dipped just a little bit this game on multiple different, and suddenly we were giving up explosives. And so you had all the success rate combined with the explosives, and it was a disaster. But here's the real reason that, and you've said it for multiple weeks now, spine of the defense, especially 22, is such a concern. His two worst plays were not in the run game. The play where we had Green dead to rights and he lost contain in a really, really unnecessary way. And then the play where they scored the touchdown in the middle of the end zone, and I don't remember the timing, but the play where they scored the touchdown in the middle of the end zone, I think at first we were like, how'd that guy get so open? And it's because 22's creeping to nowhere.
He has no clue where he's going.
He is just not, and I do say this with the caveat that like we don't know every key that everybody is working off of, obviously. But when you see the flow of the zones and what they're covering, and he lurches forward, and then Taylor Green gets a big smile on his face and hits a guy in the middle of the end zone, like you know what happened for the most part.
I can forgive the pass because that could be missed assignment. Sure. That could be just not like natural ability. What I can't forgive is you sucking in the run game when you aren't a good pass defending at linebacker and you're 230 pounds. And there were 4, 5, 6 runs. He doesn't follow the play. He just takes on the block that's not in the gap. Like it's, part of your job as a linebacker, yes, you want to have some gap integrity, but part of your job is like being instinctual, knowing where the play is going, being able to adjust, right? He doesn't do that. He just runs into whatever gap he is told to go to. It doesn't matter if the guy's running into the B gap. He just like, well, my assignment's to C gap. So I'm just going to take on this 295-pound offensive lineman who's not even going to block me on the pull. And he's going to say, oh, thanks. I can just push you away. So that way then if the back breaks a tackle or if the back notices that T-Lander's been in the wash, he can just cut back. That Washington had 2 or 3 of those. Washington's very good back, by the way. I was really impressed with him. But outside of T-Lander, we got our piece in, and you knew that was going to happen.
I want to say one more thing on it. One more thing on it, and it's when we've had really bad defenses in the past, this is what it looked like. There's gap integrity. You have to have gap integrity if you're going to fit up any run, and we are on board with that. The problem right now with him is he's easy to block.
Yes, that doesn't help. Correct.
And so it's not that he's causing havoc. Like Joseph's isn't always perfect on gap integrity, but he is a menace.
Or Arian.
Yes. Like they're bringing such force that they're making problems. T-Lander is very, very, I'm going to be in one spot and very, very easy to block once he gets there, and everybody knows it. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, with that being said, I'm not going to blame Jeremiah T-Lander for 54% successful runs from Arkansas. That's not all of him. Okay, that's a disaster. Tennessee did have 7 stuffed runs out of 40. Hobbs, I thought, did provide something.
Pretty good.
That was nice to see, and played over 30 snaps. That was very helpful, and I think that helped in the third quarter when they started getting it because I think everyone was really fresh. If Tennessee could get off the field on 3rd and 4th down, they'd actually be fine.
They really would.
They were 8 of 15. It's just so bad, man. 7 of 13 on 3rd, 1 of 2 on 4th. And yeah, the penalty difference sucked. And there was an obvious, why did the line move 3 and why did Arkansas commit 1 to R10? Okay, we don't need to get into that. We can all just say it and then move on. But you got to work through it. other than Hood, I didn't think really. I mean, Redmond had a nice play, but like they didn't really attack him. So like the rest of the secondary, I thought Boo did not play well. I thought McMurray in the pass game didn't play great. West and Josephs were good. Hobbs gave him the lift. They come off the bye week and they give 179 yards in the first quarter alone. That can't happen. And I understand Petrino, there's been like, hey, did he sandbag a little bit or whatever? Even still, if he's given out, that's still not excusable. Here's the weird thing. Arkansas's first 4 drives, 254 yards, 17 points. Remember, Tennessee forced a fumble on the second one. The next 5 drives, 106 yards, 2 turnovers and a 4th down stop. Awesome. Great work. Next 2 drives, 161 yards, 14 points. So what does that tell you? What they do in those last 2 drives? They just play prevent.
Yeah.
They just play prevent. They didn't blitz much this game anyway. So I'm not asking you to send 6 in the fourth quarter, but they stuck with 1 coverage, cover 3 with some cover 4, played 10 to 12 yards off and didn't care. And they stopped playing and they thought they'd won the game. And that's on the head coach, the defensive coordinator, and the players. That's on everyone. That is what drove me insane. If they had given up that touchdown and then Heupel runs the clock out or scores another touchdown, I'd be fine. I'm like, okay, cool, great. Whatever. They got some garbage yards. But they come and make it 10. Heupel sits on the ball. They punt. And then Banks, instead of being like, okay, let's mix some stuff up, or hey, let's make sure. It was easier than the previous drive. Remember the previous drive, they got a 15-yard targeting penalty that helped them. That just can't happen. And it's infuriating that we cannot manage a game late. This is the 3rd time.
And I mean, the whole time, especially from I'm watching this box score go multiple different directions throughout the game and ebb and flow. I was at the point where I was like, if we for some reason don't move the ball here and don't run this clock out there, we're going to lose.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if that false start gets caught on Brian Grant, which, by the way, let's not run new formations for the first time on 3rd down when we're only up by 3 and there's 2 minutes to go. Like, let's maybe break that out against UAB and at least try it first. They called the false start on Brian Grant. Like, we might be having a completely different conversation because Taylor Green and Bobby Petrino and their offensive line were cooking those last 2 drives. And Omega Blake and Raylan Sharp, I have no doubt they probably would have at least got a field goal. And then
our defense,
completely different conversation.
Our defense is not good enough to stand pat and then flip a switch.
No. They don't have the dudes on the back 7 to do that, even with how good Colton is. They don't.
No. And, maybe if it was Jermod and the best version of Boo, like there's a world where that existed. With this, you gotta pretend it's life or death every possession.
And despite all of this, it's just 3rd and 4th down. I saw a stat from Jordan Moore. Okay.
Yeah.
Tennessee on 3rd and 7s or 4th down. So 3rd and long or 4th down has allowed a conversion 41% of the time. That is 10% more than any other team in the SEC this year. That's insane. If they would just get off the field on 3rd downs, they're still top 40 in yards per play allowed. That's like, if I had told you that number beginning of the year and we had the number 1 scoring offense, you'd be like, we're undefeated and we're favored going into Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
But they just can't get off the field on 3rd and 4th down. And people are like, here's the thing, the last thing I'll say, and I'll let you go. Understand, because there are some people like, I don't like that Tim Bakes is not playing aggressive. And then the same people, again, the Georgia game after said, I don't like that we played man and blitz all game. So you can't have it both ways.
You can't.
However, you don't have to go 100% either or. You can play some man and some zone.
In fact, it might behoove you to do so.
On 3rd and 4, it's okay to be like, hey guys, like 5 yards within the line of scrimmage on these wide receivers. Like or hey, I'm going to send Arian on a blitz. Like that's okay. You don't have to be like, I'm going soft cover 2 here. Make sure you get those flats, guys, even though they're going to run a slant. Like there's a way to make it work. And right now it seems like, and this is the first time I'll ever say this about Banks. I don't think knows what he wants his identity to be defensively, because all he knows is like, I can wreak havoc with my front 4 and then the back. And I know Colton Hood shuts his side down and then I don't know what else to do.
As in like like we've said, there isn't enough talent in those spots to just roll your dudes out there. There
Right.
has to
Like
be
last year. Yeah.
some spice on it, some essence that is brought by a guy like the defensive coordinator. And like, for example, the D line, they're good, they're talented, but they also get whatever spice to make that meal better from Rodney Garner. Like they get whatever added bonus from that position coach, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not me hating on the position coach. It's just we have to give those guys an opportunity to kind of cover up the blemishes a little bit better. And when you're all or nothing, one direction or the other, there's a chance someone finds those blemishes. And frankly, my biggest concern, and we'll get to the preview of this game in a second, is like I just watched DeBoer go for it on like 4th and 7 or 8 on the road because he trusts his quarterback a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And when those two things are flying at you with what we've done on 3rd and 4th and long, that is what really has me like, what's this going to look like?
I am fine playing conservative on 1st and 2nd down with this edge group in particular, and with some of the issues they've had in the secondary. I am fine with that. I do not want 6-man blitzes, fire zone blitzes on 1st down. I'm cool with that. I got to see something a little different on 3rd down. And even in the past, Banks, look, Tennessee's always going to play softer, bend but don't break because of the offense they run. I have no problem with that. That's complementary football. But in the past, Banks has come up with some decent 3rd down schemes, to some blitzes, some different coverages, some stunts and stuff like that to help offset some of that so they can get off the field. They're not doing that this year. And I don't know if the Georgia game scared him or if it's a situation where I don't have my All-American corner. So everything that I thought I was going to do by this time, I'm not doing. I don't know. But all I know is with this defensive line group, it is too talented to have as bad as the numbers as they do.
Yeah, like those things, the place where we're struggling the most is actually the place where you would think they'd be eating. And they do still affect the game in a lot of moments. But with the D-line like this, teams should be terrified to be in 3rd and 4th down.
And
Especially,
Colton Hood's getting 1st-round picks
Yep.
from mock drafts.
Yep.
So it's not like you have 0 at corner. Boo Carter is like, he hasn't been as shut down, but he's in McMurray. They're fine in the slot. Like those are above average SEC nickels, stars, whatever you want to call them. 3 players should not be torching your defense, which is what's happening. It's the 2 safeties in T-Lane. And they are looking for answers. They played 5 linebackers. Sidney Walton played, I think, at least 20% of the snaps. So they are trying stuff because they know the red dot is on the 2 safeties and the number 22.
We're heading into a game where the red dot's not moving. The red dot's not moving.
No, DeBoer will, yeah.
I talked about a couple weeks ago, and we're shifting to the 3rd Saturday in October. I talked a couple weeks ago about how I felt like a lot of Ty Simpson's success had come from not just raw talent, but a lot of design stuff, and that they've done a really good job with that. And I actually admittedly said that in like almost a critical way, but he's doing a good job executing that stuff, and that stuff is gonna be sitting there. I think there are ways that we can buck up against it, but that stuff's gonna be sitting there if we have the same concerns with the spine of the defense. I think the quote that always pops into my brain when I think about the 3rd Saturday in October, and it's from the perspective of Alabama. And so I think it's funny that this is what pops into my brain first. But for those who, like you said, some people who like you hate other teams more or just as much, or you kind of don't recognize the rivalry as much because it took what Heupel did to end the streak that was going. From an Alabama perspective, the quote, "I have to hate Auburn, but I choose to hate Tennessee," is what I think of when I think of this rivalry. Of like, there's all sorts of other stuff and regional stuff flying around. Great. Thumbs up to those rivalry games. I'm excited for them after Thanksgiving with some leftovers. Awesome. But this game is 2 teams that really, really want to hate each other, regardless of who's at the helm and let alone the history of who's been at the helm. How are you feeling about the 3rd Saturday in October as a spectacle? But then we'll get to what's going to happen on the field.
It's really nice because we're right around the same age, early 30s. this game matters again, because for a decade it did not. And whether that's fair or not, part of that's just like East-West divisions, right? That was a small part in it. But when Saban was on his run, and of course Tennessee goes on their worst run, I was probably saying program history. It just was a brutal 1-2 punch to the rivalry. And it wasn't that just like we lost. Like other 9-15, Saban kicked our ass every year. Like that was a real part of it. And I mean, we were so desperate that when in 21, when Hooker hits Javonte Payton, I believe it was, to get it to 7 in the fourth quarter. And we talked about this before we recorded. We thought we were having the greatest night of our life. Like that's how desperate it was to make it competitive again. And then 22 changed everything for the program. It's one of the 5 most important games in Tennessee football history. And Alabama fans, have really, I think the younger generation was taught, because Auburn always gave them a tough game. Like, it's Auburn. And then they realized, like, oh, actually, no, it's Tennessee. The old fans, no. To have this game matter again, prime time, ABC, and CBS gave it a pity. It was a pity, like 3:30, because it was Alabama and because it was the third Saturday. It was like
it was a showcase for Alabama.
It was, exactly. Like when they put us on 3:30 and 17, it was like,
I'm like, man,
like
where
really?
is 745 SEC Network when you need it?
Yeah, seriously, the SEC Network's right there, guys. It's right there, I promise. So to have this matter again, and game day would have gone to Tuscaloosa had they not gone.
Yeah, the pattern was just funky.
It's just, yeah, exactly. So it matters again. It's beautiful game. Yes, I wish we could get the crimson versus orange jerseys. One day we will stand together. But it's great. It matters. 2 great head coaches. Like, I know DeBoer's, like, people are like, oh, the dynasty's over. He's still a really good head coach. Heupel, we know, is a really good head coach. The talent is even, it feels like, for the first time in a while. I would say last year was kind of the start of that. So it's beautiful to have. And, it will be nice if we lose. I don't want us to lose, so let me rephrase that. If we lose, it will be nice to be angry about it again, which for 15 years did not feel that way, other than 09.
I can't talk about it. It's one of my least favorite. It's one of my least favorite sporting moments of my life.
That's fair.
Golly, it was a penalty. That's all I'll say. The where I'm at with this rivalry right now is, and we said in preseason that it's absolutely insane that we're just trading home and homes with Bama, given where we were when Heupel took over. But it's that point in, like, I typically feel like it's talked about in a playoff series, especially a 7-game series for other sports, where like it doesn't start until the road team wins a game, because otherwise it's just, you're just falling into the pattern, and like eventually the cream's going to rise to the crop, and the home team with the slightly better roster is going to win. Blah, 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 blah. We're at that point now where to actually flip it a little bit, to actually be the biggest thorn in their side, which that's the goal, is for them to absolutely hate it, is we got to win on the road. We have to, because I think they can write off 22 as some like miraculous coming together of higher powers with Hooker, et cetera, and they can write off a couple years ago as like, oh, Nico made one good, or last year as like Nico made one good pass all year, it happened to be against us. Like, there's all sorts of ways that they can talk themselves out of it. When they're playing as well as they're playing in recent weeks, if we can go and flip the trend and quote unquote the series begins because a team wins on the road for the first time in a while, that's when it starts really humming again. If it can reach another level, that's when it really starts humming again.
That's how long it'd been when on Twitter, Casey Clausen was talking about Tennessee, who's a very successful high school coach in California. It was praising Joey and telling him, saying, Heupel's doing a great job. I looked and went, damn, Casey's looking old. And then I thought, damn, he's the last quarterback to win in Tuscaloosa.
Yes.
So like, just one of those 1-2 punches that you think about. And I was like, I'm 32. 2003, I'm 11 when we beat them. It's been so long. And other than 23 and 15, maybe, we won't mention 09, but we were double-digit underdogs. Like, other than those two games, I've never went into Tuscaloosa thinking, like, they got a chance or they can win or whatever. And to finally, despite all the negatives we just mentioned with Arkansas, for them to be single-digit underdogs and to think, like, man, if the defense just plays a B game with how well Joey's played, with how well the offensive line's played, with the dangerous wide receivers we have, it would not be bigger than 22. I don't think Heupel, other than winning a national title, will ever be bigger than what 22 meant for the fan base, for the national perception. But you want to talk about becoming a national title contender overnight, because everyone's kind of been like, Tennessee's been cute with Joey. That's kind of how they treated us so far, and that's not completely unfair. If you go into Tuscaloosa, even without Saban, you go in there and you kick their ass, you become a national title contender, and you put yourself in a great spot for something you haven't done since 2007, which is get to Atlanta. And that's a huge part of becoming a national title contender.
When you essentially, we would flip spots with them in the polls, and then you got Georgia and Ole Miss playing, who are going to trade spots in some form or fashion. We'll see what, the pollsters do with that, what they talk themselves into. And then just the road of the SEC that other teams in the top ranks are going to have to face, and we're included in that. But if right now you just have Bama at the 11 to 15 range, hoping things break right for them, and us at the 5 to 7 range, feeling a little more in control, like that's where you want to be when things are humming like this offensively. And so let's get into kind of the specifics of what we think can lead to success. What are the absolute must-haves? And then, as we like to do, kind of the specifics of the roster and what we're looking at, because it's not one of those where we're going to out-talent them. It never is with Bama. But there's some real shout-outs to do in terms of the talent they have on their roster and the problems that it could give us.
Completely different offense than last year. They bring back Ryan Grubb, who had a one-year stint in Seattle, who's kind of been DePore's right-hand man this decade. And they've changed some stuff on offense, and they have, I don't know what I would quite call it. I called it a modern West Coast with a lot of motion and a heavy emphasis on ball control, but they don't do ball control like you would think. They do ball control because they convert on third downs like a mofo. They are so good at it. They are top 15 in the country. They have a lethal passing attack. You can make the case Ty Simpson's been the best quarterback in the country since week 2. They're 7th in EPA per play when they pass. They're 7th success rate passing. They're 96th percentile passing explosiveness, and that's with a injured / checked out Ryan Williams. Like, that's incredible when you think about it. They avoid turnovers really well, but they're not perfect. Their O-line's hit or miss. They're 71st in sack percentage allowed. They also, weirdly enough, do not run the ball well, which
at all
could even be at all, which could be exasperated because their top running back, Jam Miller, who's done a lot of the work of their success running the ball by himself, is questionable, but it does not look good for Saturday after the hit he took against Mizzou. So they do have holes in their offense, but they are going to be able to do a lot of stuff with the passing game. Jeremy Bernard has been awesome this year at wide receiver. He's been their best one. He's starting to get some first round love. He's massively improved from last year. He's a ball winner. He goes over the middle. He's got tough hands. He can rack up the yak. Like, he's going to be a problem, even with how good Hood has been. And I think we can say McCoy's not playing this game. Williams was the star last year. He has not looked right. He missed a game with injury. He did not have a catch against Mizzou. He only played about half their offensive snaps. Bohr said the injury is aggravated. He's going to play, but I don't know how much a factor he will be. And Isaiah Horton's really stepped up in his absence. He's 6'4", he's physical. They're going to look for him in the red zone. Simpson, though, is kind of the guy, and I mentioned him before. I compared him, and you loved the comparison. I was very proud of this.
Yeah.
I was like, imagine Aaron Murray with more natural talent. That is what I would say here. He's a redshirt junior. This is his second year in the offense. He's quick, decisive decisions. Good pocket awareness. Plenty of arm strength. He made a couple. He didn't light up Missouri, but there were 2 or 3 throws, and I don't think you watched, but I did. I mean, they were NFL. Like, how in the hell did he get it there? Like, couldn't drop in the bucket any better. And he's going to stand in there, and he'll take a hit, and he's going to throw an accurate ball. He's not – he thinks he's the best moving off a spot. He's not. But if you don't move him, if you don't make the pocket uncomfortable, he's going to dice you up. And he can get greedy trying to make a play. He takes big yardage sacks. He doesn't like to throw it away. He doesn't like to take 2 yards rushing. You still got to stay in your lanes. He's got enough athleticism. He can do that. He had a big run against Mizzou. That's kind of where I'm at here with Simpson. What are your thoughts on Simpson overall?
He's the architect of what I'm about to say. You mentioned the modern West Coast. What I think of when I see it, and I thought this against Missouri, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And like, I don't know if that's that they're missing the explosiveness from Williams or that he, didn't quite rise to the level and kind of leveled off a little bit after some explosiveness last year, or it's the injury. I don't know. But they're not this like dudes who are going to be first round NFLers running everywhere. It's not that. But it is like they are so good at catching you off balance. They're so good at getting 7 when they needed 3. They're so good at, like, he is willing to read out a play. And like you said, he has the right touch on his throws to, like, the 4th down conversion that has me scared was an amazing throw from him at a clutch moment. He had a throw into the end zone for a touchdown that was like pure anticipation. Like, it was pure anticipation. It was trusting the route, trusting the receivers. And they're at that point, and this is why part of also why I say death by 1,000 paper cuts is it feels like they have 5, 6 different guys. It depends on if Jam Miller plays, which again seems unlikely, who are like, none of them are going to win the Heisman, but they're all interchangeable and they're all going to be a problem. And when that starts to happen with an offense that seems like it's designed well, it's like, oh, they're just finding the leverage point. And Georgia did it to us a little bit too, where it was like, as soon as they realize the look, they are ready to attack. And Simpson is patient enough to do that and has a good enough arm to do it. And that's what really worries me. The other thing that really worries me is, and like you said, we can go through some of the numbers. The run game is like non-existent in a really strange way. But the O-line's pretty good overall. Like, and I said this to you when we were talking about it. It's not that I have faith in the run game by the numbers. I just have faith in their offensive line talent, and eventually that's going to play up, and I'm worried it's going to play up against us. And I think they get the running backs involved in the pass game against linebackers. Now, a huge part of that was Jam Miller, but it's not that they won't do it with these other kind of interchangeable parts of the offense.
If it's not working, DeBoer will throw 50 times. He has no problem with that because of how diverse they are with their screen game, with their quick game. The fact that Simpson gets the ball out on time and has such a quick release, what they'll do instead of just running the ball, they'll throw a little 4-yard hitch to Williams or Bernard or to Horton and take 1st and 10, make it 2nd and 6. Just doing that. Or they've got a running back, Kevin Riley, who's really their 3rd down back. He's a good pass catcher. They'll run him out on a little swing, take the 5. That's fine. You did mention their offensive line has talent. They do. Caden Proctor's going to probably be a 1st-round pick at some point in his career. However, they have had some issues. And one of those is they had 8 guys play 18 snaps last week on a road SEC game. That is not something you see. Proctor's the left tackle. He shuts it down. I'm sure he's going to get some dumb Wildcat carry. I can't say that. I'm a Lions fan, so I can't criticize offensive linemen getting the ball. So he's probably going to convert a 1st down and get that crowd going. That's fine. What I would say, though, right tackle's a huge weak spot. Wilkin Formby, yes, that's a real name. And yes, he plays for Alabama, shockingly enough. He is really bad against speed rushes. He has been a target all year. He's really struggled. And they started going more with their young guy, Michael Carroll. His snap counts have increased week by week. Their right side has been bad. Gino Vandemark has been getting criticism as well. Jaden Roberts played 41 snaps. That's their third guard. So they will rotate guys, which is not something you see a lot. They are nowhere near previous Alabama lines. DeBoer likes quick offensive linemen. He likes the zone. Saban played a lot of did gap runs most of the time. They run a lot of zone runs, so they like a little bit quicker, a little more agile. But I will say Brailsburg, is a very good center. But I think this is where Tennessee can win a matchup. And again, Simpson is mobile, but he stands there. So Tennessee could really, if they can get heat on him with 4, because I don't think Banks is going to blitz. I think that's a recipe for disaster, actually, trying to blitz Simpson. He's going to look to make plays. He's not going to, he will take check downs, but when you get him off a spot, he does not like to throw the ball away, like I mentioned. He doesn't like to take the 2 to 3 yard run. He's looking to make big plays. So if you can get him off his spot, even if you don't wrap him up, and have him try and make a mistake, I think Tennessee can really take advantage of that. And again, their offensive line run blocking has been very porous, and if they don't have Jam Miller, who's a nail, who you give him 1 yard, he'll get you 3. You give him 2 yards, he'll give you 4. They don't have that outside of him, and that's going to be really interesting if he's gone, if he doesn't play. If Tennessee can also take advantage of that.
Two interesting things. One, we talked about it with our defensive concerns. They've been so bad on third down. They've been somehow worse on third and long, it seems like. That's also one of those things that when we're talking about like things that are sustainable versus not, and I know it's painting a rosy picture, there's just no way that percentage continues to look that much different than every single other team in the country in the SEC. Like, that just probably has to converge a little closer to the average over the back half of the season. And I know that's maybe me being hopeful, but if we get them off schedule with the run game and the run game isn't getting downhill, because that's the thing with Arkansas, is they could just run the ball on us over and over and over, especially with the quarterback. They didn't have to worry about getting off schedule. If Alabama gets off schedule, then they're going to have to keep in help for our defensive line, and you really better rely on those routes developing quickly, or Simpson's going to continue to try to make that play, and suddenly you got our defensive line on him. A couple of interesting things, and I think this probably is more just the plays that I saw, not the way they do things. But there were a couple different plays where they had the tight end helping Proctor, like briefly chipping and then going out into the route. Not even chipping so much as just bumping. And then they were leaving the right tackle and the right guard just to sort things out themselves and getting eaten alive. It was really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were getting eaten alive. And I was like, again, I think maybe we just saw a couple examples where that happened and then something popped and blah, blah, blah. It's not that they're blind to it. But if they are still a little bit concerned about Proctor and they want to be able to run the ball and they want that kind of extra body over there, that's fine with me. Like, we're going to have guys who are going to eat off that right tackle and right guard.
I think it should be mentioned, too. Jam's a really important pass protector.
Yes, he is.
And if he's not in this game, that changes some stuff for them, where now Josh Cuevas, their tight end, might be chipping on that right side, or might be not even going out into a route, and that can really change a game.
Yeah, and especially if we don't know what it's going to look like from a defensive perspective, but like our corners are physical enough to make Ty wait another second or two. And like you said, he's willing to wait another second or two. But our defensive line, I mean, they are confident, man. Like, they don't care that we're playing in Tuscaloosa. They don't care who we're up against. They're going to laugh off the fact that there's this future first-round projection at left tackle. Like, they are ready to eat. I guarantee you they're ready to eat.
And they've gone after everyone, too. Last year, they got some accusations of, like, the defensive line ate when the competition wasn't good. That has not been a problem this year.
Yeah, they do not discriminate, man. They are going to go. No. And not only that, but like, we have, like, Hobbs is much more of a pop in any kind of pass rush compared to Moy. And so he kind of brings that extra little sauce. And then some of those young guys are coming along, man. Some of those young guys are coming along and using their hands in ways that are really impressive for young guys. And so if they, who knows, because the offense is designed extremely well, but if they show any signs of not being able to hold up in pass blocking, especially if our offense is humming, we are going to, and we say this sometimes, when the defense is actually playing well, especially in the trenches, and when the offense is what it can be, what do I always say to you? I say, they better buckle up, because it's not that we're going to win by 40. It's just that we're going to be on you all game. And that's in play. It's not a guarantee, but it's in play. And I think that's a path to winning the game.
Especially with how they play offense, because they are so unique in how their offense is designed. When you look at it, they had an 86 percentile success rate against Missouri last week. Okay. They averaged 4.53 yards per play. That's 18th percentile. That doesn't happen. It doesn't. But they second and 6, cool. We're going to go to 3rd and 2, and then we're going to go to 5 yards here. If you could disrupt their passing flow on first down, they love to throw on first down. Okay, they are going to do that. If you can get them down on early downs, or if they run the ball and you can get them to 2nd and 12 and push them back a little bit, you can really have success. They're a very good offense, and DeBoer is going to red dot 2 and 22. I totally get that. But if your defensive line can eat on 1st and 2nd down, and you can force them in the 3rd and long, despite our struggles on that, those situations, that's still 41% success rate, right? And you take out the 4th downs, it's lower than that because we suck on 4th down. Like, you are going to usually win on 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 11. So you take out their run game, which is probably not going to be a factor, even with our struggles against run defense. You take out the fact Simpson's not going to run read options and design path runs and be 6'6", 230 like Taylon Green. There's a path for our defense to have a good game. And with our offense, which we'll get to in just a second, they don't even have to be an A game. If they're a B game, they can win. If they play like they did against Syracuse, for example, they can win the game. If they play like they did against Mississippi State, they can play the game. They can't play like they did against Georgia and Arkansas.
Alabama right now, their offense is, and this is simply just not having enough information because the season's still going on. They are that offense that every week when you watch, you're like, okay, yeah, there's some really clean moments here. And then you look at the advanced stats and you say, oh, they're like a top 5 offense. Like, oh, whoa, hold on. I did not see that pop on tape. I did not feel that as they were playing Missouri or as they were scoring like 27 or 24. They're not this like greatest show on turf type of thing. And to me, that is always either the truth will come out and they actually aren't quite as good and the competition will get a little more stiff and blah, but they've played some good teams. Or it's the scariest damn thing in the world because they are actually just that efficient. And as long as they keep the quarterback clean, he's not going to stop being that efficient. And that can be a really scary thing.
It reminds me a lot of USC with Pete Carroll and Sarkisian and Kiffin when they didn't have Lindell White and Reggie Bush.
Yeah.
Because it's like when they had Liner and Palmer and then they had Mark Sanchez and John David Booty, it was just, they would 6 to 8 yard pass play to you to death by 1,000 paper cuts. That's what they're going to try and do here. And Banks is going to let them do it. I'm just telling you, Vol fans now, there's going to be a lot of there's going to be some times where it's 2nd and 4 because we didn't get to a guy and they run a little 5-yard hitch. Like, it's just going to happen. And I apologize for you in advance. The key is not to let Simpson complete 80% of his passes. Can you get that number to 65? Can you force a couple pass breakups? Can you close in on a hitch or a slant where it hits the hands of Williams or Bernard or Horton and you force the pass breakup? Can you tip a ball on 2nd and 8 to make it 3rd and 8 on the defensive line? Little things like that are real with how they operate on offense is going to be major because the more plays you run on offense, the more likely you are to make a mistake. So that's going to be really important they're going to have their yards and that's fine. but you got to tackle better than you did last week. You have to be a little more aggressive when balls are completed. Try and force it out, and maybe a little more fumble luck from our defensive line will save the day.
Well, and this, my last thought, and then we'll shift to our offense, trying to attack their defense. I know that we've struggled on it, but give our defensive line another chance with some 3rd and 8s and 3rd and 12s and 3rd and 7s. Like, just hold up enough to give them that, and they will, throughout the course of the game, they will find a way to eat. We know that they will. And so if we give them the chance, they'll come through. The other parts of the defense have to follow suit, but they will come through. Thinking about the other side of the ball, thinking about an offense that pops on the numbers more, even if the efficiency looks roughly the same, or Bama sometimes even scores out better on some of that stuff, which is the weird, scary part. How do you see us trying to attack them? And then who are the key players on their defense that are going to try to put a stop to that?
Yeah, Alabama look, I don't want to judge Kalen DeBoer, but just because you put fun names with your defense does not make it awesome. They play what they call a swarm defense, which is it's a 4-2-5, but they'll play some 3-3-5, like you normally see in college football. They play with 2 defensive tackles, 4 DBs, 2 linebackers, and then rotate Bandit and Husky and Stinger, and there was another one that I don't even care. So they do a bunch of different stuff. Wolf, that was the other one. So they kind of mix stuff around and whatnot. They've got 2 really good defensive linemen. Tim Keenan, who's their nose tackle. He's a run stuffer. I would expect Tennessee to focus on double teams on him all game long, because he can wreck your run defense. And they also have another excellent defensive lineman, LT Overton. He's going to be a first-round pick. He's your classic Alabama defensive end that is 280 to 285 pounds. He can bend a little bit. He's, can stop the run. He can play, one technique. Well, maybe not one, but he can play 3 technique, 5 technique. He can line up in the jack. He can do a bunch of different stuff. Their defensive line's pretty decent, but they do have their struggles on the run game. They have allowed a pretty significant gap in the run game. Florida State got them good. Florida State got them really good. They've settled down a little bit since that game. But against the run, they're 74th in EPA per play. Their 42nd success rate, which is good but not great. But the big thing is they allow lots of explosives in the rush. That's kind of been the big thing that they've had their problem. They're 20th percentile in rush explosiveness allowed, and they don't get TFLs. They're 26th in stuff rate percentile, 26th percentile in stuff rate. So their defensive line, they've got some dudes. They're going to rotate guys. They got a freshman named London Simmons, who I watched some highlights on Twitter. True freshman. He has been fantastic for them in their run defense. They're going to bring in Yonze Pierre, who's going to blitz sometimes on 3rd down. So those are guys you got to watch for. But I think Tennessee can run the ball. Even with some of the struggles we've had running consistently, they woke up the run game, and Bishop is cleared, or should be cleared, to play. I think it scared him more than anything last week. It looked bad, but I think it just scared him. So I think this is where Tennessee can really thrive, is by staying ahead of the chains with their run game.
I mean, Missouri was 163 yards for the game there for 6 yards a pop. They had success. They wound up with the same exact yardage as Alabama. They just lost the turnover battle and couldn't quite make it happen through the air the way Simpson was making it happen through the air. But they had some success against Alabama, and they had a little bit of quarterback run game success. And I think their quarterback is a tiny bit more athletic than Joey, but maybe we can design things a tiny bit better. And so maybe we can affect them just enough to do that. Their defensive personnel and what it leads to in terms of scheme, like you said, there's all kinds of creative names for it, but it's these are the dudes they have out there at the end of the day. It almost strikes me as when you wind up deep into an NCAA football dynasty, and you just happen to have 4 extremely good safeties, and you're like,
right.
You know what? I figured out that this game really likes this kind of player, and if I can get them on the field, they're just going to make plays. They're fast enough. They're going to cover somebody. They're not going to get exposed. Let's throw 5 of them out there and make it happen. And they have the guys to they just have the horses to run that type of personnel. And then they have, frankly, the D-line talent to hold up when they run that kind of personnel. And so even when this is going to be one of those games from my perspective that Joey's going to get those looks that seem like they're light in the box, but the talent they have on the D-lineman, the D-line, and like the one that requires a double team, and then the first round pick that's sitting there is going to even up those box numbers somewhat, kind of like the best versions of Georgia do sometimes, where it's like, oh, it looks like they have numbers there. Oh, sorry, I was mistaken. They did not have numbers there.
Mm-hmm.
And so especially with the interior parts of our O-line not popping every single play the way we've wanted them to, I hope we can get some momentum in the run game. Do you feel like, and this can go to scheme or it can go to personnel, do you feel like they have the ability or will they take a similar strategy to try and just like take Brazel out of the equation? Or do you think they're going to try and be a bit more even keeled than that?
It's going to be interesting because they let their safeties roam a lot. Keon Sapp's their best defensive player in the backfield, their best defensive back. He has a chance, I think, to be a day 1 or day 2 pick. Rangy, dangerous. He tackles in the open field. He's got some free range. Like, they kind of let their safeties in college. You don't see this in the pros, you do, but in college you don't. They let their safeties roam around and kind of adjust to what they're seeing. Bray Hubbard has been really good this year. He got demolished after week 1 with some poor effort. He is really recovered. He will miss tackles, though. He will miss tackles. That is important to look for, like Mike and Starr potentially in those situations. But their safeties, to answer your question about Brazel, I don't think they're going to bracket them. I think they're going to play a lot of either one-on-one or deep zones. I think there's going to be a lot of one-on-one matchups for Brazel. What I would say here is their corners are interesting because Damani Jackson was their projected best going into this year, but he lost some playing time and it was the coach's decisions. And then they moved to 5-star 6'4" corner. I'm tired of playing 6'4" corners. Dijon Lee Jr., he was a 5-star. He had the game-winning pick against Missouri last week. And then they don't play their star as much as a lot of other teams. Zabion Brown, who's really good, actually. He only got about 29 out of 53 snaps because they like playing base defense more than most teams. So to answer your question, basically what's the passing game can do, I think they got a chance. I think they're going to get one-on-ones. I think it'll be tough middle of the field because Sav and Hubbard and what they do and how rangy they are, and they can play sideline to sideline. They don't have the most athletic linebacker group, but their linebackers are more just like gap fillers, almost like Tennessee's. Like, hey, can you just help out in the run game? We'll worry about the back end later. Right. So I would say Tennessee is going to have an opportunity to get some one-on-ones, which will favor us. Staley's going to play. Heupel was hilarious. It was like he was dancing after the win, so I think he's fine. Looked me up. Heupel's gotten so serious in these press conferences to make sure he doesn't give anything, so that was kind of nice to see. But I think Tennessee's going to have some chances.
The one thing I noticed in looking through a couple of different box scores, and again, this is box score scrubbing. This isn't like how the efficiency looked every game. This isn't all tape for every game. Despite having my eyes on Bama a lot, they haven't had a quarterback just air it out against them. From just a sheer number of attempts and completions. And I think some of that could go back to they are the type of team, it seems like, with their personnel to kind of just dare you to have success in the run game and kind of count on the fact that even if you do, they can hold up a little bit. But they have not had someone just stand back there and air it out to multiple really good all-conference level receivers for 47 passes. I don't necessarily know that I want to prescribe that for this game because that could be very, very scary. But if we felt like we wanted Joey to throw a little bit more last week, maybe there's a world where we test a little bit and test the discipline of those safeties who like to move around and see if they're up to the challenge. Now, they may be, but maybe it's time they got a really good test in that regard.
Yeah, what's interesting too is that because they don't run super no huddle like Tennessee, they're kind of like Arkansas. They'll sometimes go fast. They more no huddle and just get to play from the sideline. And the fact they're so efficient on third down, they don't see passes. They only see 24 passes per game. That's the second fewest in the country. In total, they only see 55 plays per game. That's fourth fewest in the country. So when you combine that, like, we haven't really seen, other than Florida State that first game, a team be able to really dice them up because they control the game so well offensively. They play excellent complementary football.
It seems so often that what we want to get off on the right foot from Heupel, and this is such like a duh thing, but it's like, let's have the script work, let's get a lead, let's put them kind of on their heels a little bit, because especially against the really good version of the Bama offense, the difference in they are trying to keep pace and score versus they are trying to just dictate and let us run as few plays as possible. Those are two different worlds for this team this year. And if we are in that mode where every possession feels like we absolutely have to score, and they're playing keep away with a really efficient offense, that's I think where it scares me a little bit, and where they could have one of those kind of back-breaking drives that we've avoided in some games so far. But to me, again, it's a whole different picture if we have a lead and if we find a way to add to that lead.
I want to clarify something. I said Sabian Brown was their star. I meant to say Deshaun Jones. Sorry, Sabian Brown's their other corner. Please forgive me. I think this game's just going to be a third down game on both sides. If Tennessee can go 10 of 15, might be asking too much. Tennessee can go 8 of 15 and 2 of 3 on fourth down. Would Josh go for it 3 times on fourth down? I don't know, but we might find out. Alabama's 6 of 15. Tennessee's probably going to win this game. And if it's the inverse, Alabama's going to win this game. I really think that's going to be the key. It's like, who can get off the field on third down, who can stay on the field on third down.
You might have actually just answered it. What is your most important matchup for this game? And if we're thinking about it as most important stat, I think for you it might be success on third or fourth down.
If you went individual player matchup, I think it's whoever the defensive end is that's going to go against Formby. And if DeBoer and Grubb are going to stick with him, because they keep playing him, but he keeps not performing, especially in the pass. So I think that's going to be like the individual matchup I would look for. In terms of like overall, I think the key is going to be, can Tennessee play good enough offensively for 4 quarters? Tennessee's got a great offense. We have a fantastically designed offense. They've done a great job this year with the adjustments. Joey's played great. The offensive line's done almost even better than I would say my expectations were. But, just because it's Josh Heupel, there's going to be 3 drives where they get nothing. After that, can the defense do something? Are those 3 drives that we saw in 2023 going to kill us? The 3 or 4 drives we do nothing offensively. We have to be able to play complementary football. And that sounds so simple and it sounds so dumb, but it really is the case. It's like, can you pick up your offense on the defensive side when they don't perform? Alabama's got enough dudes on defense that we're not scoring 55. We're not going to put up 52. It's going to probably be in the 30s. So to me, that's going to be the key, other than third downs. Just like, can the defense garner enough stops, especially when the offense slows down, which will probably be the third quarter because it has been, to keep Tennessee in this game and then go from it late.
Yeah, I kept circling back to 2 things on this. One is, can our receivers just have those kind of games? 2 of them or all 3 of them just have those kind of games where like Brazel just can't be guarded, or Matthews finally puts it all together and breaks tackles, and they, pop something that shouldn't be popped, and like just take advantage of those safeties being in the wrong spot one time. And so that is where I initially went, is just like a monster game from that wideout trio. But the more I thought about it, it just feels like a huge Joey game. It just feels
usually comes down to the quarterback.
Yeah, and so it just feels like a huge Joey game with like his willingness to stand in there, his willingness to fire. If he can if he can affect the game with his legs just a couple of times, a couple of key moments, and keep it clean, and not force anything, but still be willing to take shots. That is what I think is going to let the wide receivers play up, because we're going to find space here and there. Like you said, we're not scoring 55, but we're going to find space here and there. And so it just feels like a game where, kind of all eyes on him in Tuscaloosa. And that's how you do it, man. That's what it comes down to.
And then I guess we have to answer the question: are they going to? They're not blowing them out. So if this game is close, is the head coach going to manage it correctly? Because if they don't, Daniel, we might have our first F-bomb on season 2025 on that Wednesday night.
It's in play.
Third Saturday in October. It's in play.
It's in play, and because again, this game can go a lot of different ways, and the defense needs to hold up for it to be, even close to F-bomb worthy in terms of the closeness on the scoreboard. But if it's close, we're good enough to beat them. That's the thing I think Vol fans can take solace in going in. Doesn't guarantee anything, but we are good enough to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think their defense is a little bit undersold, and their offense is a little bit scary efficient, and so we'll see. But our talent is good enough, and so
I agree.
Now it's a matter of going down there and doing it. What's your score prediction?
I can't do it. I just can't, especially after what I saw in the fourth quarter last week. I got Alabama 38, Tennessee 31. I think it's going to be close, but I just think they're going to pick us apart on third down. And I think just they're going to be able, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5, pick them down in distance, and they're just going to convert. And I just don't think I think we're going to have explosives. I think offensively we're going to have a good game, but I think, just because it's how we run this offense, they're going to have 3 drives where they get 3 and out, or they might get a turnover and they get 3 and out, and they just can't turn it back on. So I went 38-31 Alabama. I think it's going to be like Tennessee scores with like 5 minutes to go in the fourth, and Alabama just has a torturous 5-minute drive to end the game.
I had it at 34-29 Alabama. I had us losing this game when I was thinking about preseason, and there hasn't been enough to move me off of that, is really where I am. Even with like us being better in some ways than I expected. The way that they are good on offense could really create problems for us. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get to some massive score or massive score difference because of just the ruthless efficiency with which they do it. But it does mean I think it's going to be really hard for us to get to the point total we want, because their design might actually be good enough at playing keep away. I could see it. I think it's a game in the second half. I think there could be part of that score that comes from like a furious comeback attempt, and it's been 34-21, and then we cut it closer. And there's every chance in the world that they then like have that ruthless like back-breaking drive, and it's 37 or 41-29. So I think a little bit of it will be like we turn it on again. And that's the part of the game I'm most interested in, is if there is a moment late in the third where it's just like, oh, this is just not our night and we're in Tuscaloosa. Does it squeeze back to a 5 to 8 point margin? Or does the combination of like our frustrations with the defense and the offense, that a turnover happens here and there, and it actually is that game where we see it go to like 42-21 in a really frustrating way?
If you win, your path to Atlanta, especially with the report today, it came out that Billy Napier is probably not making it out of October, just clears up so much. And there's still ways to go. Oklahoma, I don't think was Oklahoma Saturday. I don't think that means that it's over, but for them. But it becomes a lot clearer if you can win this game. Because if you lose, you're done. Not in this SEC.
If we lose this, we've still got the season's still alive, but Atlanta's not still alive.
Playoffs still alive, Atlanta's not. And I think this team could really, I would love, it's been so long. So I just look at it like SEC title game would be incredible. But if you win, like I said, you open up another level that even last year's team, because Arkansas happened early, didn't reach. So it's going to be really interesting. And again, that'd be another pelt on the wall for Heupel. Unlike another coach at Penn State that never had any pelts on the wall.
Oh my gosh.
Did you like that transition?
I love that transition because I get to talk about James Franklin being fired.
Is this the most shocking college football hire or fire, excuse me, of the decade?
I thought it would happen is part of why I'm not shocked. I just don't see how you can't lose to UCLA and Northwestern back to back. You can't.
Well, right. Like after Northwestern, it was not, but I'm just talking within like, I'm trying to think of
like from preseason.
Yes. Like if I told you Penn State fired James Franklin for performance in preseason, you would not have believed me.
The only thing I could have thought of, if you would have told me he's getting fired this year, I would have thought that basically they lose every coin flip game and Ohio State beats them by 40. And so it's like, okay, so you stopped winning those really close ones. And
where they lost to Villanova.
Right. It's like you just got decimated in the big games and you lost a couple of the more coin flippy games. This is one of those things, and these were not just like transfer portal purchases. And so I don't mean to say it this way, but this was one of those teams that somehow like convinced their running backs to come back and convinced some of the talent to stay and things like that to like do that thing where they build the roster and they have some NFL dudes there on both sides of the ball. And it's just a nightmare.
Despite all of that, and I will not say he got a raw deal because he's getting $50 million out of this, I would not have pulled this trip.
Really?
I get it.
Do you think he's a good coach?
Yes, because there is a certain amount of football coaches in college football that have to be good coaches. Unless I think like 3. Unless you're like unless it's Kirby Smart and Kurt Signetti. That's the only, if you want to say that's the only good college football coaches, and maybe Kalen DeBoer, Dan Lanning, like Steve Sarkisian. Okay, cool. Like if you think Brian Day, do you think there's 6 good college football coaches? Then I will listen to that argument. But if you're like, he's top like
20.
I mean, he's like a top 20. Like how many FBS programs let's just say before the last 3 weeks, okay, would have fired their coach for Franklin in a heartbeat? Power 4. Probably 50.
Probably 50. Because
right?
You're taking the coach for Penn State. And he's done well.
Yes.
But
Daniel, he not only did he do well, his team had the ball with under a minute to go in a tie game with a national title game berth on the line.
And he's also like, he has shown like, it's not like he did this 5 years ago and they've been mid since. Like he's showed improvement despite being
they were
good
in the Big Ten title game last year, non-division. Yeah. It's not like you could be like, it's not like you could be like Paul that year Wisconsin got in at like 8-4 or whatever. Like,
but this, I don't know, for that to be so like blatantly obvious, but basically everyone to be like, yeah, they were going to lose those games. It says something.
The one place I would defend the AD is why is your offense suck when you're an offensive?
Yeah.
Which we brought up on this podcast. Like that would be the thing that would drive me insane as an AD. Like it's one thing when Heupel's your head coach and your defense sucks like ours has. Like, okay, that just comes with the territory or whatever. Like we have to live with it, But how much more frustrating was last year's team when it's possible they might even be better because the offense was bad and we had an offensive head coach, right?
Yeah.
Like those kind of things factor into these type of decisions. And I get it. Yeah, he's not going to win a national title. I understand. But like at the same time, I do think you owe a guy a chance who over the last 3 years has, I think, won as many games other than like 3 or 4 other programs, a chance to build it around. And I know he had that 2-year stretch in 20 and 21, which I don't even really count. But like that's a brutal business. And it just shows how college football is changing.
Yeah, I think it is more brutal business than a perfect decision. It is maybe not a sound, logical decision if you could just like breathe and say, okay, what if we just let him continue to steer this? Because again, if every time, now this is a pretty insanely bad stretch, But if every time you just didn't meet expectations, you were like, all right, here's the door, that's not really sustainable. That puts you in the wilderness in a way that really isn't fun as a football program. And maybe they end up there because some of the names getting thrown around, it's not like they're going to be like instantly better. Even the ones that are optimistic are not instantly going to be better.
It's funny to compare Penn State, and I know Urban didn't get fired, but it was kind of like, hey, you're sleeping with cheerleaders, so I don't know how much longer you can be here. Allegedly.
We're going to, yeah.
Allegedly. I would be like, if the AD had come to me and said like, hey, I want to fire Franklin, I'd be like, okay, that's cool. I want you to go look at Florida the last 15 years. A program that was in a really good spot when Meyer left, who hired the right guy, right? The big name, then hired another big name, and then hired an even bigger proven name in Dan Mullen, then hired the best group of 5 coach available over the last couple of years. And now they're going on coach number 5.
They're just in the wilderness. Yeah.
And it's that easy. Like, I get it. But if Cignetti says no to you, Matt Campbell says no to you, Matt Rule says no to you, and even if you hire Matt Rule,
I was going to say, this is not fair, but you can't lose the 2 games he just lost at that program and keep your job. But if they hired Matt Rule, I would probably make fun of them on this podcast.
There's not anything. Well, I mean, Joe Klatt said they should call Nick Saban, so I guess that would fix all.
Oh, true. I guess if they're going to do that,
yeah. Or hey, Heather Dinich was like, "Is Ryan Day happy?" I'm like,
I swear, dude. I'm ready to rant about this. This is going to be short and sweet. We have seen, I think, a combination of the ones we've surveyed across the SEC and then the ones we've experienced as Tennessee fans. We have seen coaching searches go to their absolute logical ends and beyond. Like, we have been about to hire Newt Lombardi at Tennessee. Like, we have been there with these, like, we were tracking Vince Lombardi's jet one time, I think. And so we've seen it be silly, but there is a difference. Let me pause. There should be a difference in pure baseless speculation from message boards and actual reporting from journalists about college football. I understand that there's not, because eyeballs matter most, especially for the mouse. But if you have connections to this stuff, your role is to talk about the possibilities, lay out the landscape. And if you're pulling from information and you want to like kind of splice that in as a possibility from your sources in a really tricky way, that's super clever. Good job by you. Ryan Day's not going to Penn State.
Well, it's the way these people say it, right? Heather Dinich, well, you need to see if Ryan Day's, is he happy at Ohio State? Because you didn't report he's unhappy. You didn't report that he's looking. You didn't report the agent reached out. You're just like, what if he is? But then you get the pub from it or whatever. Or Joe Klatt saying, I would call Nick Saban. Well, yeah, duh. I would call Nick Saban too. And then Nick Saban would be like, hey, yeah, I'm good. Miss Terry won't let me coach anymore. Like, that's
the world. Just the so world we've come to, where every single thing, and this is, college football somehow is not even the worst offender on this. The NBA is, in my opinion. The world we've come to, where anything that is not a 0% possibility is just a 50-50 possibility. That's just not how it works. Right. And so just because I can't prove to you that Ryan Day would never in any parallel universe take this job, like the burden of proof can't be on me there. Yeah. We have to be able to look at it and say, allowing for an incredibly shocking, silly decision, we don't expect that to be likely. And just because we've seen some shocking, silly decisions before doesn't suddenly put the odds of the next one at 50-50. And so we're about to have, I think I saw actually a reasonable, maybe even conservative projection that we're going to have like 25% of the D1 jobs are going to be open.
Mm-hmm.
We have to breathe a little.
Yes.
Like Florida is not hiring Sean McVay. Like they're not. And like Bruce Arians, like there will be some mention of like Bruce Arians had success at a school right down the road. That school being the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who knows? He hasn't said no.
Yes.
It's like it's just stuff like that is going to happen, and we can't let it be the whole thing because too many of these jobs are going to be open. It's not going to make sense.
Excellent point. Now I have 2 questions for you, and you have to make it quick because we're over an hour and a half. 1, who would you hire realistically if you're Penn State? Because I know it wouldn't be Matt Rule if it was you.
It would not be Matt Rule. I mean, it would not. It would be Ryan. It would be Ryan Day, but it's not going to be Ryan Day. I think I would hire Campbell and be a little unhappy with it.
That makes the most sense. I don't think Cignetti's leaving.
I don't either.
We'll see.
I really don't.
The second part is, would you rather have the Penn State or the Florida job?
I think I'd rather have the Florida job.
Ooh, interesting. I don't know. Penn State, like the fact that I'd have to, it would just rub. I don't know. It just rubbed me the wrong way if I'm a coach. I'm like, wait, that guy was in the playoff semifinal. He got fired 10 months later. What are these people's expectations?
Yeah.
And the fan base was happy about it. Like, that's the other thing. It's not like when Florida fired Mullen, like the fan base was like, you kind of had to, like, okay, like it's not great, but we understood. Or, a couple of these other places where it's like, like I don't think Oklahoma State fans were thrilled they had to fire Gundy. They had to, but it was like, we gave him every chance under the sun to revive it. It's like, if I'm like Matt Campbell, who can win 8 games at Iowa State forever and be a god, and then I'm like, cool, if I'm 8-4 in year 2 trying to do this the right way, my job is now on the line, I would not want to touch that job. Florida has given Napier and Mullen plenty of time, so I would rather take that job, even with a lot of the disadvantage. Although I would say Scott Strickland can't be here. That would probably be my one caveat to taking the Florida job. But that would I would not want to touch the Penn State job right now. And then there's the whole Paterno thing. Like, you have to consider that. Like, oh, I'll never, ever, 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 ever be the best coach here.
And like you're comparing me to ghosts that have all other sorts of issues that get brought up. The other brief comment, we'll see how it tracks throughout the season, but it turns out Dan Mullen might be a pretty good football coach.
That's going to be a weird 10 years.
Weird name that's going to be popping up for these 25% of the openings that we have. I was looking at the schedule, and I love that this is prime time. I love that it's Tennessee Bama. I love that it's the third Saturday in October. You know what I'm excited for? I'm just excited for Kirk to call the game. What a perfect matchup. Primetime ABC. Get the crew down there. Like, he loves a good college football rivalry. It's just perfect, don't you think?
Wait, no, actually.
He's not calling the game.
Did you know that only the Alabama grad can call this game?
I had a friend, and this is a friend who way more than us, and I mean this in like a perfectly complimentary way, way more than us, thrives off of like sports hate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, has no qualms about just like, this is what drives me. This is what gets the blood flowing. And I this really meant a lot to me. He said that he actually admired how frustrated I get about Greg McElroy.
It's not Greg, even though I think he's fine.
I don't. But that's a whole different conversation.
He's inoffensive to me as a listener. But
as soon as you complain about a fan base and a coach celebrating a national title, you're done, in my opinion.
That's fair. Fair point. I'm just talking more about when he's actually calling
on air.
I should clarify. I cannot believe it. Look, when Herbstreit called Ohio State games, there was a little bit of a like, this is tough because this is one of the top 5 programs in the country. They're going to get primetime games, and Kirk is your number 1 analyst.
Like, how much this is just going to match up sometimes.
And that sucks. And I'm sure, I mean, it annoyed me because I hate Ohio State, that there were times I'm like, yeah, Kirk, that was pass interference, man. Stop trying to make, excuses for it. And Kirk's not calling this game. You're going to do the game day, which is fine. Okay. Sean McDonough and Greg McElroy, and I love Sean McDonough, do not have to do this game. You can easily give this to Mark Jones, who's like a 30-year veteran. You can easily give this to Tessitore. You can, and his crew. You can easily let Andre Ware, fill in with McDonough. Like, that's fine. It's unbelievable that even Bama fans are like, man, that sucks. And if it was like 2-6 Tennessee, I think did he call the 21 game? I want to say he did.
I mute him every time he's on, so I don't know.
Well, that's fine. But that's fine. If like we were 2-4 and Bama's 6-0, and it's the noon, SEC network game, whatever. I wouldn't care. This is a top 12 matchup. Like, this is utterly ridiculous that you would let a Bama grad and a recent one. It's not like even Herbstreit could be like, hey, I played at Ohio State 35 years ago. Like, that was a long time ago. Like, McElroy played there within the last 15 years. At least Saban's not there anymore. But, I mean, it's just ridiculous that they're like, hey, this is not a problem, because it matters and it affects perception. And it's just, there's no reason for this to happen. I think he did. I know McDonough did. So yeah, maybe he did. But it's just, there's absolutely no reason for this. None. And it's not like that's their normal spot. Like, if they were their number one team and this happened, so be it. You could easily put Tessitore in that spot. He was your Monday night guy and I forget who's with Tessitore is. I don't know why, but just put this Dustin. Is it the forecheck? I don't know, but it's ridiculous. It pisses me off because this is easily avoidable.
Yeah, it is. And it's like, it's one of those things where all we can hope for is that it comes down to the wire and he has to just sit with it. And like, it being within our control and within the possibility that we win, that would be beautiful. I'm sure there will be some kind of back end justification from the announcer crew when that happens, but it does open up the possibility from a just like injected into my veins perspective of him having to deal with the home loss in the third Saturday in October. But there will be massive parts of that game where the lean is just really clear, and where we can, I like to avoid that. So the only saving grace I have is that I will not be listening.
I mean, I probably will, just because if I miss a penalty or something like that, like, I'm going to be mad about it, or if I have to unmute it or whatnot. So,
well, and I say broadcasts this year have done a really bad job of showing the penalty, as in,
that's also fair.
They'll make the call and they'll point, but they don't show what the penalty was or the number as well as they used to. And so there are times where you're like, if you're not listening, you're like, I just have absolutely no idea what happened there. And so there's a chance it gets popped on.
Overall, paired with Palmer. How come I didn't know that?
Oh, totally interesting. Forgot. Overall, for the weekend, it is one of those slates that if you're the type that you need a little bit to distract you before for the long wait for a primetime game, you have it before you. There's a great SEC slate. There's a couple of sneaky ACC games. There's a sneaky Friday night game for Miami. And so there's enough to get you there, to get you to that primetime Saturday. And then we'll duke it out and we'll see what happens afterwards.
It's the third Saturday in October. This is special. It's regained it. And we need to appreciate that. And like I said, if Tennessee wins this game, it changes everything for the season, for the program this year. And we're going to be here talking about it. I'm sure there's going to be a lot to digest, and I'm really excited about it.
We appreciate you guys listening. We appreciate your attention. We appreciate your enthusiasm. We appreciate you kind of riding the wave along with us this Saturday night, because I know it's going to be nerve-wracking, and we just have to hope that the team plays up to their potential. And if they do, we've got every chance in the world.
Thank you guys for listening. Please follow us wherever you get your podcasts. We are also on YouTube under Power-T Talk. Appreciate you guys. If Tennessee beats Alabama, there's a 5% chance that there might be a midnight show. I don't know. Maybe we'll go live. I don't know. Sounds fun. But we appreciate you guys. Go Vols.